All right, guys, we have 3 weeks and 1 day until the real test for you folks. We still have a few things we're going to review, a couple of things I haven't taught at all, and then it's going to be practice, 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 folks. How do you practice math? By doing math problems. You guys did the 2016 and 2017 EOC. Those were the most recently released tests, and those are the best things for you to study. I gave this one back to you already. This one I'm going to give back to you probably the week before the test. Now, in the meantime, besides all the little warm-ups and reviews and a couple of new lessons, we're going to be doing some other older EOCs. Like we're going to start, I think, the 2013 one today. Now, we're going to do it just a little bit at a time. Sometimes it'll be a quiz. Today you're taking a quiz. Sometimes it will be homework, but please listen up. There are some of you who have a tendency to not do your homework or get lots of help, air quotes, okay? If you're not doing your homework or getting help on it, folks, it's not going to do you any good. The whole point is to review, and if too many people are not doing their homework, then we're going to have to do it all in class. I want to be able to do some quizzes in class, some as warm-ups, and I do want to be able to assign it for homework. The more questions you see, the better prepared you will be. But that rhymed, yeah, see what I did there? You have to take your homework seriously, guys. Every few years, it's kind of like the question cycle. So even though we're doing some of the older tests, the questions are very valid, and those could be the ones that show up on this test. Not the exact question, but the same kind of situation. One thing I always see is factoring. So your homework tonight is just a review of factoring. 10 questions on factoring. All right, number 1. If you see a plus-plus combo, what combination do the factors have to have? They have to be plus-plus. Remember this whole guessing and checking process? The first 2 terms have to give you the 3y squared. Well, that's got to be 3y and y. There's no guessing about that. The 10, however, on the end, the last 2 positions have to multiply to give 10. Here's where we got to do some guessing and checking. I would probably start with 2 and 5. Are y'all remembering this? Boys, I see some of you not even looking. 2 and 5. I'm going to start guessing with 2 and 5. Now, where I put the 2 and where I put the 5 will matter because whatever goes in this position here is going to get tripled. So I kind of think about it before I even put it down. If I put a 5 here, what's it going to become? 15 and 2 won't, if they're both positive, won't make 11. So I'm going to try the 2 here and the 5 here. That would give me a 6y and a 5y. And we already said they both had to be plus-plus. Will that make 11? Yes. So that's my winning combination. Now, please listen. In the past, they used to always put 1 or 2 factoring problems, and lots of kids knew how to FOIL very well. So even if you didn't know how to factor, you could guess and check the answer choices. But guess what? The people that make the test got wise to that, and then they kind of changed how they ask a factoring problem. They might give you this and ask you to find one of the factors. So it's forcing you to factor. It won't give you answer choices to guess and check. So if they only wanted one of the factors, then either they would put 3y plus 5 down there, or they would put y plus 2 down there. And I have seen them do that. So you've got to be able to factor. If they have the choices down there, absolutely you can guess and check, and you better check your answer anyway. All right, now look at number 2. What's the sign combination here? It has to be 2 negatives. Fernando, how do you know it's got to be 2 negatives? Yeah, if this last term is positive, then it's either a plus-plus or a minus-minus. And if the last term is positive but the middle adds up to something negative, then it can't be 2 positive numbers. They will never add up to something negative. So yeah, it has to be 2 negative signs. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you can find the answer just by looking at the signs. All right, 10y squared. That could be 10y and 1y or 5y and 2y. What do y'all want to start with? 5y and 2y. Lucky for us, 7 only has one choice, 7 and 1. However, the position I put the 7 and the 1 matters. If I put the 7 here and the 1 here, that gives me a 14 and a 14y and a 5y. Oh, I got lucky. And that can make negative 19 if they're both negative. I don't know. Now, always double check yourself. 5y times 2y, 10y squared. Then you would get negative 5y. Then you would get negative 14y. And then you would get positive 7 on the end. Sure enough, that's the winning combo. Edwin, are you with me? Because it looks like you haven't been listening to a thing I said. Your homework. This is Victoria's drawing she wanted you guys to see, by the way. Your homework is page 178. Write this down, 1 to 28, just in the first column. It's 10 problems. Close your mouth. It's not that big of a deal. No, write this down. You're going to do it after the quiz. Well, then burn it into your brain. This is factoring. Your homework's on factoring. It's just a review of factoring. We're going to be reviewing topics that we haven't done in a while, and factoring was way back before Christmas. I thought so, but first period didn't remember how to do it at all. Okay, now, one of the things that we are going to go back and kind of touch on again is scatter plots. Please write this down because I'm about to change screens. No, you have to write down one page, and you don't need to take a picture of this. All right, I'm changing screens. You should have already had paper and pencil out. All right. You're about to do a quiz on your own. Number 1, we're going to do together, however, and it looks very much like this. I recreated the graph. Please hush. This is a graph it's a scatter plot about cavities and flossing. What do you think's happening what's going down? Number of cavities is going down. What's going up? Right. So what's the moral of the story here? The more you floss, the less cavities. One's going up and the other's going down. That's what a negative correlation is. Now, on the 2013 test, all they asked you is there a correlation? Yeah, what kind is it? It's a negative correlation. That's all they asked, and the answer was negative correlation. So nobody should miss number 1. This is number 1 on your quiz you're about to take. Now, they have definitely stepped up how they ask scatterplot questions in the last 2 or 3 years. They're not going to make it this easy anymore. They might ask you to actually find the equation of the trend line, which, lucky for us, the calculator can do it for us. Super easy. Sometimes that's called the line of best fit. Okay, so that's one thing they could ask from a scatter plot. They might ask you to find the correlation coefficient, and we did that one day, but we only spent one lesson on it, and I want to go back and look at that again. That's a value. It's a number, and again, the good news is the calculator can tell you the number. Remember, the variable for that is r, and all we got to do is make the calculator tell it to us. The third thing they could do, though, is ask you to interpret it. They could ask you whether it's strong or weak. For example, this is a negative correlation. It could either be a strong negative or a weak negative. Are you with me? You could also have a strong positive or a weak positive. And if they don't have a correlation at all, then your correlation coefficient would be 0. So remember that that's a number that could be anywhere from -1 to +1, and it indicates the strength of the correlation. So if I told you that I'm thinking of a scatter plot that's not from this situation at all, but the value of r was 0.7, what would that tell you? That's a strong positive. If r equaled -0.7, what would that be? That would be a strong negative. What if r equals 0.2? That's a weak positive. What if it was -0.2? That would be a weak negative. Are you with me? Okay, and they would probably give you one that's fairly obvious. So, even though number 1 on your quiz doesn't ask us to do any of those things, we are going to do them. Because that's what they ask on the most current end of course exam. So, just to practice, because we only did this once, I didn't have a whole worksheet on just scatter plots. We're going to put this into our calculator right now. How would you find the line of best fit? Or how would you make the calculator do it for you? You got to put the points in. All of them. If it's a scatter plot, you cannot just put a few in. If you want the line of best fit, the trend line, then you have to put in every piece of data you have. That's the hardest part about this, guys. Get your calculators and let's put it in. Do you see how I have 0, 6, 0, 7? Are you with me where I'm getting these 2 points? And then I have 1, 4, and 1, 6. Stat edit, stat calculate. Well, first we're going to go to stat edit and put all these points in. I'll list them out to the side if that makes it easier for you. 2, 3, and 2, 4. 3, 3, and 3, 5. 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4. 5, 1, 5, 2. 6, 1, and then 7, 1, 7, 0. Okay, so if you're doing all the X's first, you got 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 7. There's 3 points that start with a 4. Okay, do we have all the points in there? Okay, so we go to stat, edit, and we put in all those points. With a scatter plot, you got to put them all in. And if it's any other kind of function like quadratic or exponential, you got to put in all the points. The only time you only have to put in 2 points is if you know it's perfectly linear. Is this perfectly linear? No. It's a scatter plot. Scatter plots are not perfectly linear. What we're finding is the best line we can find. And you need all the information to find the best line on a scatter plot. Okay, so are we done with the points? Then we're going to go right back to stat, calculate, and we're finding the best line that we can. So even though it's not a perfect line, we're still finding the equation as if it were a line. So the slope would be about negative 0.816, and the y-intercept would be about 6.006. I usually like to give 3 places. The more digits you put, the more accurate it's going to be. Okay, so if they ask me what is the trend line, it would be y equals negative 0.816x plus 6.00, what was it? 6. That's the equation of the trend line, and they might ask you to find that. We did it just like you find the equation of a line. We put in all the points into stat edit. Then we went right back to stat, and this time we did calculate linear regression. Now, I want to see those points. And I use my window of the picture to make my window of my calculator. What's my lowest x value? 0, and my highest is, well, it looks like 7, but I'm just going to make my x's start at 0 and my y's start at 0. The highest x and highest y, I'm just going to leave it at 10. Are you with me? All I did was change my x and y minimum, because all we're looking at is the first quadrant. 0 to 10 on the x, 0 to 10 on the y. And how do I get it to show me the dots? You go to y equals and you highlight plot. Now, all it's going to do if all I did was highlight plot is it will show me the dots, which is useful if we didn't already have the dots. On one of the questions you did, they just gave you a list of points, and you couldn't see the configuration. On this one, we could actually see it. They gave us the picture. Doesn't our picture look like their picture? So you could tell from the picture it was a negative correlation. Now, I want to see how the line of best fit fits in there. So I'm going to go to y equals and put in the best estimate of that trend line. Y equals negative 0.816x, do this with me guys, plus 6.006. And now it's going to graph the line. Doesn't that look like a good trend line? Some of the points are above, some are below, and looks like 1 or 2 might have actually landed on it. We don't have time for silliness. I'm not kidding. Okay, then bring it up here. That's called an ID10T error. Write down ID10T and see if you can figure it out. Okay, reset it and start over. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, folks. Shh. Back to this problem. I'm not done yet. Okay, back to this problem. They might also ask you for the actual correlation coefficient. That's the R value. And the good news is, we already got the points in there. Please tell me you didn't clear them out. Now we're going to get it to tell us... Now we're going to get it to tell us the actual value of R. And that will tell us if it's strong or weak. How do we do that? Okay, somebody last period showed me an easier way. The way we learned was to go to the catalog. Remember, the 0 is catalog. And you want to turn diagnostics on. There's also another way to do it, and I think it's quicker. Go to mode. Go to mode and scroll down. You should see stat diagnostics. You got to scroll down a little bit. And it has off or on. We want to turn it on. We want to turn the diagnostics on. I don't know. Okay, if you want to do it the old way, then you would go to 0, the catalog. Remember, we want to look for diagnostics on. This is the first way we learned to do it. And then you just want to make sure you put diagnostics on. However, it's easier for you to remember. Okay, now we're going to go back and do that stat calculate linear regression again. It's going to tell us the slope and the y-intercept, and then 2 other things will pop up. Please don't look at R squared. We don't need R squared. That's not for Algebra 1. We want to look at R. What is the correlation coefficient? Negative 0.907. That's my value for R. What does that tell me? This is strong negative. Strong negative. Okay, it's not an exact science. Like when I looked it up, I read that 0.3 would tell you that it's weak. So I assumed anything under 0.3 would be no correlation. But in general, they're not. I think they'll give you ones that are obvious. Like if they gave you 0.7, 0.8, or 0.9, or negative 0.7, negative 0.8, and negative 0.9, those would be definitely strong. 0.2 would be weak. The only time that I would, it's very flat. The steeper it is, the stronger it is, basically. The steeper, the stronger. Because the steeper is getting closer to, fractions are flat. Okay, so if it's a flat, it's probably going to be on the weak side. All right, we need to go ahead and get started on the quiz. Your homework, if you didn't write it down, you do not need to take a picture of this. All right, your homework was 178, 1 to 28, first column. It's just on factoring.